So here is my bug out bag. I've been wanting to make a video like this for a while, and because I've got some new stuff and switching things out, it's my opportunity to take it apart and put it back together for everybody. This is Mango, our new cat. So I'll start with the backpack here. This is just a Kelty hiking bag, 30 liters, something like that. I think it says 4750 down there. This is what I use when I go backpacking or go for a long trail hike or whatever. So starting with the small stuff here, I've got liquid DEET, which is keep the bugs away, obviously. I've got a Mora bushcraft knife, which is always nice to have. And I've got my compass. Next to it, I've got my N95s. And I actually had these packed before COVID, so I felt pretty clever. I was thinking more of dust and debris back when I put them in there. I've got my Sawyer squeeze. This is for getting water out of the way. And just as a backup, I've got some iodine or purification tabs. Next to that, I've got a whistle and then fire starting kit, which for me is just a lighter and some extra dryer lint packed up. I've got my waterproof cover for the backpack and a cheap flashlight. Then I've got a wind-up radio, solar-powered radio, kind of keep abreast of all the news. Before I go too much further, I just wanted to go over the general idea of my pack, or how I break down things. I think of it as food, water, shelter, fire, and defense. And you could break down a bag into a million different categories, but as long as I'm kind of filling those specific categories, I think I'm doing okay. So I'm gonna keep going here. For shelter, you know, if I'm really just leaving the house, bugging out, my plan is to tarp out. So this is a folded tarp, a couple of tent stakes, and 550 cord. With 550 cord and a tarp, you could pretty much put a shelter up anywhere. Next to that are my sleeping bags. And if you notice, there are 3 sleeping bags and 3 bivy sacks. I kind of forgot to mention this earlier, but my bug out bag is for 3 people. Me, my wife, and my 5-year-old. And eventually I need to break this down where my wife has her own bag, and when my 5-year-old is big enough, he'll have a bag. But for now, I just stuff it into one pack, and I know I'm not going to get very far with this much junk, but it is what it is for now. Now, next to my packs, I've got my mess kit. You know, of course, a camp pot. This right here is a lid, and it can double like as a frying pan, and a couple of spoons, or fork and a spoon. This right here is a rocket stove, and you know, they make a dozen different makes and models. Essentially, you can burn just a little bit of grass, twigs, whatever, and make a small smokeless fire. That way, if you don't want to make a giant campfire, it's a lot more convenient. And I like doing it this way rather than trying to like collect fuel and make a big fire, or bring fuel, alcohol, sterno, whatever. It's kind of hard to keep that stuff in a bug out bag that you don't use very often. Next is clothing. So I've got a change of clothes for myself, and for my 5-year-old, and for my wife. And with that, I've got these stuff sacks here. And this helps keep it a little bit organized. Everyone gets their own stuff sack. This one is technically a dream sack. So it's kind of this soft felt stuff on it. And so when you stuff it full of clothing, it also doubles as a pillow. And so essentially we have 3 sets of clothing and 3 pillows. I also have a small toiletry kit, a couple of toothbrushes, deodorant, a little bit of soap. I probably need to throw a bar of soap in there. And next to that, I've got a couple of MREs. And I know these are controversial when it comes to bug out bags. People go all over the place as far as what food they want to carry. I probably do need to swap these out for some freeze-dried or dehydrated actual camp food. This is what I had at the time, and I used to be in the military, and I'm used to them. They are heavier than normal camp food, but it works for now. So, because I went through my bug out bag here, I was able to filter out a little bit, and I'll talk to you about what I've filtered out here. So here's what I've removed today. I've got this survival sleeping bag. It's essentially a giant heavy-duty trash bag. It essentially functions as a bivy sack, because I've purchased a new SOL bivy here. I'm using 1, 2, 3 of those, one of the heavy duty ones. Because I've got a new one of this, I can kind of take this guy out. Next to that, I've got this titanium spork thing. And this Columbia mess kit. I just kind of duplicated those without realizing it, so I've pulled them out. Another thing I've removed is this camp candle. I just never really used it for camping. It seems like a good idea, but it's just weight that I'm not really utilizing. This right here is an old military signal light. Put some batteries in it and a strobe, so if you're ever lost, people can find you. It really only works at night, and it just seems like extra weight. You know, I've got a compass with a signal mirror if I really need it. I've got one of these Mylar blankets. And again, because I've kind of switched over to the triple bivy sack system, I don't need this anymore. This one's an interesting one. Both my wife and I wear glasses. And when I get new glasses, I put the old ones in. I just realized it's been a while since I've done that. So we tried out our glasses. And both my wife and I have moved on prescription-wise so far that these are no good. So I've got to put a new old pair of glasses in here. Here's my wife's glasses as well. I've also got these, which are just some safety glasses. And I feel like safety glasses and gloves are something people often put in their bug out bags. And that's fine, but I just feel like I end up not using them much, so I pulled them out. Finally, this is a rain jacket. And it's good to have rain coverage, but, you know, I had 2 rain jackets, so I put my old one in the bag. I still use my current one. And just from being in the bag for so long and being old, it's literally disintegrating. It's kind of hard to keep 3 new, nice rain jackets packed away in a bag that you never use. So I think what I'm going to do is just swap out for those cheap plastic ponchos. So if we really need something to protect us from the rain, I've got it. Without having like rain jackets just sitting there doing nothing and dry rotting. Now what I'm going to do is kind of reverse everything here and pack it up for you. There's a million ways to pack a bag, and I like to do this the way I did it in the military, which is you pull things out in the way that you're going to use them. So you pack it in reverse, and I'll kind of explain that. But basically, when you get to camp, the first thing you need to do is be able to access water, be able to make a fire, things like that. You know, you're really not going to need to change your clothes until you have your sleeping structure up. You're really not going to need to make a meal until you have the fire done. So I pack the things that I'm going to get to first on top. At the very top of the bag, I have a pouch that I can get to without having to take anything out. So commonly grab things like some bug spray, my knife, water filtration. You know, if I need to grab a mask, those things are all right at the top, so I can get to them without having to pull anything out. So here's all the stuff on the top of my pack. You know, you've got your water purification because you can't carry enough water to go very far realistically. So you got to stop, purify, collect water. So it's right there where I can get to it. Got the radio so I can listen to what's going on. You know, your rain pouch for the backpack, a flashlight. Just, you know where this stuff is. It's right on top. This actually isn't even in the main pack of the pouch. This thing kind of sits on top here. I've got my clothing all packed up. So I got mine, my wife's, and my little ones. And easy to keep them separated. And then, like I said, these double as little sleep-in pillows. This one here with the fancy felt, which is nice. Toiletry kit and food. And this is going to go all the way in the bottom of the bag. So you're not going to change your clothes, you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to sit down for a meal unless everything else is done. So you don't need to get to this stuff until you've done a lot of other things. So all the way at the bottom, last thing that you'll be able to unpack. So first thing that you pack back into the bag. Next up is the mess kit to pack up. So these guys are pretty clever. They just fold together here. And this is my little camp stove, rocket stove. It's all part of the same set. So all this packs down, goes inside of each other, and they can go into here. This is the MSR Seagull. I don't think I can do it one hand, take it apart, but it'll all go in here and makes it pretty easy. Yeah, a camp pot, the humble camp pot, is honestly probably the most, I wouldn't say useful, but most vital tool you can pack. Now, obviously, if I'm going to be indoors or getting food from FEMA or whatever, I don't need it, but you can't replicate a pot. You know, if I'm stuck outdoors and need to boil water or cook something, you know, I could build shelter out of sticks. I can crawl under a rock ledge or whatever. But if I need to make water clean to drink, you know, I can have filters, whatever, but boiling it, you just can't replicate having a pot around. You kind of pay a penalty as far as weight goes, but I really think having a pot, even if you don't have this little camp stove contraption to go with it, is just worth always having one. I managed to get this thing back inside of itself. My silverware comes with a little ferro rod. Well, I said I got it together. And then it just snaps shut. Now that I got the camp pot put away, I've got to deal with the sleeping bags. Because I'm packing for 3 people, carrying 3 different sleeping bags. This pack is absolutely stuffed full when I'm done, which is annoying. But I got to get another bag for my wife and or my little one to start carrying. But for now, this works. If we ever have to run out of the house, it's all together versus trying to find my camping stuff strewn about. Now, interestingly, if my wife and I really were going to go camping, we don't actually bivvy out. So I've got this set up to, quote, bivvy out. Technically, I'm also tarping out. But bivvying out is where you get any waterproof bivvy sack, lay on the ground, and inside of your sleeping bag. And this works pretty good rain. It works in moderate cold weather. It can't be really cold. You start to lose some, ability of your sleeping bag to keep you warm when you're laying flat on the ground. When my wife and I go hiking or camping, we actually hammock out. We've got hammocks, and that's the way we prefer to do it. But for quote-unquote bugging out, if you're in the FEMA Superdome or whatever, it's nice to have a sleeping bag. If you go somewhere on the side of the road where you can't find trees to pitch hammocks, it's pretty hard to use them. When you're camping and hiking in a controlled setting, you know where you're going, you know the terrain, hammocks are great. But this gives me more flexibility. And like I said, if I'm bugging out, I'm not necessarily planning on living in the woods. I could be at the Walmart parking lot, with a bunch of other refugees waiting for a fire to go by. And, you can toss your sleeping bag on the ground and sit on it, have a picnic. It just makes life a little bit more comfortable. All right, so sleeping bags and bivy sacks are packed up. Now my backpack is huge, but it's all fluff. It's just full of sleeping bags. And I know there's debate on whether you keep your sleeping bag on the inside or the outside of the pack. Obviously, there's a heck of a lot more room if I put them on the outside, but then I just have empty space in the backpack. And I feel like if it is rainy, it's hard to put your waterproof covering on the outside of your backpack if it's covered in sleeping bags. And they're not something you really need to get quickly. It's not like a quick access item, so they could be kind of tucked away. Again, it makes it kind of bulky when it's not, relatively speaking, it's not heavy. But this bag is set up for 3 people, so it's way heavier than a typical bag should be. All right, last to pack, but definitely not the least, is the humble tarp and some cordage. With a tarp and cordage, you could create infinite number of shelters, stringing it up between a pair of trees, hanging it over the side of a car. Stakes are convenient, but not really necessary. I could probably take these out. They are extra weight. You can always stake something down with a stick, something like that. But these super light stakes are pretty nice because they're sturdy. They don't weigh much. Again, you could take it or leave it. You can stake down your tarp with other things. This tarp is 10 by 12. Haven't really used this one. I've got another one we camp with more frequently that looks terrible. Pack this one up. My tarp is packed up. And so, when you're making camp, when you get to where you want to go, this is the first thing you pull out. You got to get a cover over your head. You can lay it on the ground, so you could put your sleeping bags on the ground. If it's raining, it's great to have out. If it's not raining, it gives you a clean surface to work on. It's the first thing you need to do next to maybe getting water or starting a fire or something like that. So you got it right here on the top, and then everything else you grab as you need it in order. And again, there's different ways of packing a bag. You can put the heavy stuff at the bottom, heavy stuff in the middle. I'm not really carrying anything super heavy. I'm just carrying a lot of stuff. So I don't feel the need to pack this with as much order as far as carrying capacity or carrying weight. I just find it way more convenient to put it in order. So I found, and again, in the military, it was inconvenient to rifle through your bag. You realize you need one thing and you're shifting through things. It's really hard to unpack these things once you got them together. So just having them in a convenient order, I feel like makes life a lot better. Here we are, all packed up, and obviously I'm going with more of the gray man approach versus wearing a whole military pack and looking real tactical. 2 reasons for this. I do I agree with Gray Man, and if you're not familiar, that means just not looking like a target, not looking interesting. You know, this bag is not super bright. It'll blend in okay, but you know, it looks like a normal hiking bag. The second reason I'm using this pack is because I already own it. You know, I'm not purchasing a new bag, and it carries pretty well on the trail. And it just seems crazy to own multiples of everything. You know, my wife and I do some hiking and camping. This is what I use, so I just keep this pretty much packed as if we were going hiking or camping. And like I said, we don't bivvy out. We usually use hammocks, so that really would be the biggest change. I take out some of the emergency type equipment and take out the sleeper bags, the tarp and stuff, and just swap it out for a couple of hammocks. Now you might be thinking that I'm missing some things in this bug out bag, and you're probably right. The bag is set up where if I leave the house, there's a tornado coming, we got to leave immediately. I got what I want. Now realistically, if we're leaving the house, we're going to bring the cats with us. We're going to bring our pets. I know that's another contentious bug out issue, but I've got a secondary list of things I would grab in addition to the bug out bag. The bug out bag is nice because I'm not rifling through camping gear and I've got it all together. But for example, on my list, I have grabbed the cat carriers. We got 2 cats, so we have 2 cat carriers ready to go. Litter, food, it's all right here. And I've got an organized list spelling out each thing. You know, for example, I've got a small binder with critical documents. You know, if there's a fire coming through, we can get out with enough warning. I'm gonna grab my passport, marriage license, stuff like that. That stuff is really hard to get replaced. Another thing on the list of things to grab, in addition to my bug out bag, is a pair of good shoes or boots. Now, I'm a trail running person. I'm not a big fan of like heavy boots when I'm hiking or whatever. And you know, in an emergency situation, you might forget you're wearing a pair of flip-flops and run out the door. So that's why I have on my checklist, grab a good pair of shoe or boots. Yeah, another thing that I'm going to add to my bug out bag is medication. Realistically, you can't have 30 days of every medication you might have packed away in a bug out bag in your garage. It's going to expire. It's hard to get, you know, an extra 30-day prescription for your provider to write for you. So again, it's written on my checklist to grab these type of things. If I'm really in a pinch, I could still run out of the door just with the bug out bag. It's not going to be as good, but I've got it set up where I hopefully won't forget anything. Another item on that list of grab things, or things to grab on the way out the door, is a medical kit. Now this guy is not actually what I'd bring. I have a proper IFAK. It's just attached to another bag that I use pretty frequently, and it would be annoying to have to buy 2 of them. And what I'm going to do is attach the list of everything in my bug out bag and also my list of things that I grab if I have time to get out of the house. And I'm going to post it in the description below. Now, hopefully this video has given you some food for thought for your bag. This is obviously not end all be all. This is just how I like to do it. I really appreciate you guys watching, and let me know what you think. Any changes you would make, put them down in the comments below. Thank you.